Well, the hour being 1 o'clock, we'll call this agenda and priorities meeting of the town council to order this July 20th. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions?
Yes, Your Worship. In camera, MGA 197, Section 197.2, FWIPE Act, Section 23.1, land deliberations.
Okay. We'll put that in after the roundtable discussion or before?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Any other additions, deletions? No. Would someone like to move we adopt?
I will move the adoption with the amended, do you have, because with the additions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hill. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Okay, to get started off here, we have a delegation. I believe it's Suzanne Haddo and Jason Heisted. Welcome.
So as,
Do you need some introduction?
yeah, sure, as Sue and Jason come up to the mic. I've had the opportunity to meet with Pat Bedard, one meeting just regarding the Welcoming and Inclusive Communities Committee, and then with Pat or Patricia and Jason last week, and some of the work that they're working on with their committee. Through the dialogue, I asked them, it probably would be appropriate, it is appropriate for them to come before council just to share what the role of the committee number 4, apparently. So they're here to speak to council regarding the work and vision of the committee. So.
Excellent. Okay.
Ready to go?
Sure.
How close do I need to be?
He's got to turn it on.
Turn it on.
Yeah. I've kissed everybody in town now that's been here, right? So,
It's pretty good, actually, you don't have to.
thanks, Your Worship and Council, for this opportunity. My name's Jason Heisted, actually, and I wanted to say hello to the staff that are here today as well. Mort and I were exchanging some stories when I think it was about 17 working for the town. I think Daryl Rusnak wanted to kill me, but it's been a good, I'm a longtime resident, and my friend here, Sue Haddo, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I think everybody's probably sick of seeing me here. I'm Sue Haddo, and I am also a long-term resident. I've known Jason for probably 30-some years, and he and Pat invited me to join the committee that they've been working on and put together, so here to support that.
Thanks. So this is the Innisfil Welcome and Inclusive Community number 4. I believe the committee started about 14 years ago. A lot of the work that was done was newcomers to Innisfil. For example, a lot of the Filipino families and Filipino workers had come to Innisfil. There was Pat and Donna Arnold and numerous people that had started that committee. Just recently, we decided to start the committee again. There's been a lot going on in town in regards to, having Innisfil become a welcoming community. And so we wanted to share our vision, goals, and then have a request as well to council. So the vision of the committee is to ensure that Innisfil is a welcoming and inclusive community where people of diverse backgrounds live, work, and play together. Our goals of the committee are to have conversations to learn about what the issues and challenges that people of different backgrounds have experienced in Innisfil, to support educating people in the community about what a welcoming, inclusive community is or should be, promote awareness, training, and education, build a community capacity and cultural understanding, and develop a dialogue within the schools, businesses, the town about matters of concern to citizens in relation to anti-racism. And that's why we're before you. Currently, we have 12 committee members. We've had 2 meetings so far. And we focus on education to the community and addressing issues. We do have another meeting coming up on the 27th. I believe it's at 5:30, and the Henday Association is allowing us to have our meetings there. So that's the committee itself. Innisfil's had you know, in the past 6 weeks, we dealt with the Black Lives Matter rally. I want to commend Innisfail and the council for the work that you've done, supporting a young person that wanted the rally to take place. And following the rally, we felt that this may be an opportunity for us to engage citizens. And Innisfail is a great place to live and to grow as community citizens. And I think there's an opportunity to have discussion and be respectful of others. So I'm done talking, and then I'm going to have our request, but I'm going to give it to Sue.
I think I've spoken before all of you a few times already, so you're all aware of my involvement in the rally and my support of it, and some of my experiences growing up in Innisfail and living in Innisfail, working in Innisfail, raising my family in Innisfail. So when Jason and Pat approached me about joining this committee, I thought it was a very good way to tie in and follow up on the work that is already in progress. And of course, with the support of the town council, I think we can all work very well together and, work towards some improvement, some education, some change, positive growth in our community. And that probably leads us to the request that we have, and Jason's passing it to me to make the request. The committee would like to start some training that both town council members and the inclusive committees members could participate in. And our request is for $2,000 to plan some initial workshops. And I don't know if you all received, did everybody get a copy of what Jason went through with the vision of the committee and the, oh, okay.
Because we can give you this copy. Does that work? Sure. Yeah. If they want it, yeah, for sure. I think it's just full disclosure,
And possibly
right?
this as well too, because this has actually the sessions that we're proposing
Yeah.
that we do.
So. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Just thanks for the opportunity. This is the least I've spoken in, years.
Have you had much, with our, the proposed policy that we're looking at, Mr. CAO, have they been privy to that?
We have not spoken about that at the committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has not been, your worship, for your question, it has not been sent to the committee for formal review.
Just ahead, it's not quite finished yet, so it's, we need to have it to be public knowledge, and I think you'll be quite pleased with, the contents and the intent of that policy. But it's interesting, but I'll just go around the table here. Has anybody got any questions of the delegates?
Thank you very much. So yeah, this is definitely with taking part in the, with the rest of council, with a community conversation. I think it's very hard to get traction and get headed in the right direction, but I definitely think with stakeholders giving their honest input, this is, like you said, full disclosure. There's no reason to hold back from anything, and the concerns of the community are going to be wide ranged, but at the same time, we just got to start taking them one at a time. And I like our worship stated, the policy. I think it's going to hopefully cover everything that we needed to, but I know that myself, I would like to see the final product be able to cover it all. So I think there's still lots of learning to take place, but it's definitely encouraging when you get some people that are very dedicated to the community around the same table. That's where stuff starts to really take hold. So thank you.
I guess my comments would be that in that period of time that you spoke of, I feel that I've learned certainly the reality for some people in the town that I wasn't fully aware of. And to that end, feel that I'm probably better and more informed, and so I would look forward to I guess with your ask, knowing the content of the training, and of course, obviously if we do it, then I'll learn all that, but the one other thing that I guess I've become aware of, I guess if that's a word, in the last couple of weeks, is some of the initiatives that I see in the country are not garnering more support. And I think we need to make sure we're focusing on Innisfail and not trying to cure the world. And that would be just my initial thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank you for stepping up, and we've always got room for helping people and joining our community. I think overall, Innisfail has been a relatively welcoming community, but there's always room for improvement. And I thank you for your time.
Hi, thanks for coming today, and I think it's great that we have community members that want to move this forward. And with the training, are you looking at like council and committee and broader community in the package, or how will you take this out to?
Yeah, we're looking at council, the committee itself, we'd like to approach the chamber and other groups. I think there's leadership in some of our, sports organizations as well, but we want to start something that is, the conversation is Innisfail, like Gavin's talking about. So, we're not saving, the country, but we do have a diverse workforce, people in the community, and I think this is an opportunity to engage and to make sure that we're inclusive with everybody. So, Sue.
Maybe just to add to that, our discussion at the committee level was also about Innisfail. It's Innisfail specific. It's not even Red Deer, not Calgary. It's not Alberta. It is Innisfail specific. And there are a lot of wonderful things about this community that are welcoming and inclusive. When you read through the information we've passed out, the 2 sessions that we have, the one certainly that I'm most interested in is more of the education, where we can all be on the same page and have the same understanding of where we go from here, and using the same terminology. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about different terms, even what racism is, or discrimination, bullying, the Black Lives Matter movement. So just to have some education about what those different things actually mean, so that we're all speaking the same language, because so often people in a minority situation will feel offended by something that's not intended to offend at all. So I think that it's important for us all to kind of get that same language, and just be aware of how we're presenting ourselves as a community, and because we are sort of in the national news, and people are looking at Innisfail and what we're doing, and I think we're certainly taking some very good baby steps for progress. So I think if you read those 2 sessions that we're suggesting that we introduce, I think that will explain a bit more too.
Well, I'd also like to say thank you for taking the initiative, and I think I see an opportunity for you guys to approach service clubs and try and get them involved, and maybe even get some backing from a service club. I'm sure this type of thing would fit a lot of their mandates, and I think the training's a great idea, and I look forward to being able to do it.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Jason and Sue, for taking your time on this beautiful afternoon to come and visit with us. I guess being the last to speak, everything's been said, but I can't let it go at that. I think this is the first step. Many have heard me say, on that journey of 1,000 miles, you got to take the first step. And I think we're well on our way to do that. And Innisfail is a great place. It's a good place. But as any organization, any place, we want to be great. And if you've ever read the book written by John Collins, it's called Good to Great. And it's got strategies and philosophies in there that take you to the next level. And I commend you and your 10 other committee members for stepping up. This is community driven. And I really think I fully support it. So anything that we can do as council, as I can do as an individual, as a resident of Innisfail, please feel free to give me a call. And thank you again for coming out and talking with us.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I just have one question. Todd, I guess, one of the first things is to recognize this group as a legitimate group that we're working with. Is that gonna require a resolution of council to?
If that's what your worship, if that's what the committee wishes, they may wish your blessing. Would be appropriate. It's up to the committee if they wish to do that.
Because I think, we've always felt, the welcoming committee has been there in the back, in the shadows somewhere, but I don't know if we need more, to bring it, revive it, to bring it to life, to get a little more recognition. I don't know. What is your feeling?
Well, one thing that is in play is Johnny Bukowski has agreed to do some journalism on the committee and is going to be doing a series of articles for the Albertan, beginning with, I think, some of the members of the committee, their stories, and actually starting with that.
Good.
This is, as a legitimate committee, it is through, and then if we do have donations and all that, we would be working closely with the Henday Association, because in the past, anything that did come through the committee, the Henday Association actually worked closely with Pat and Donna Arnold in the past with that. So just however you guys structure it, or put it forward a motion, it's up to you guys after we leave, right? That's on good governance. It's up to you as a team, and if you want to do it here or at another meeting. But I guess my request would be to do it, sooner than later, to discuss it as a group. And thanks for the time. And I wanted to welcome Don onto the team. He's the new guy, so.
He's got a lot to learn, but.
He seems like a pretty good guy. And I guess my comments to administration and to all the staff, you guys do a great job. I've known Todd a little bit for the last few years, bumping into him in the community and giving him a hard time at times. There's times I send messages, this needs to be cleaned up or this needs to be done. And so he puts up with me. Similar to the time I was giving Jim a hard time when he was mayor, and there was stuff on, in around town. I thought it should have been cleaned up, and I'd always send Jim an email and to bug him. So thanks for the time today.
Okay.
I'll let Sue wrap it up. We're getting as much time. We're on YouTube.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, I thought that was
This
a
is
good
our
wrap up, Jason. It's our show.
It's our show.
Well, thank you very much, and I do appreciate all the town council has done to date, because from the moment I wrote the letter to town council asking for the support of that rally, I really didn't have high expectations, and I feel that my expectations have been far exceeded by the work and the effort that everybody has put in, and the continued support to move things forward is really, close to my heart and makes me feel very appreciative of everybody here. So thank you very much.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Okay, I think we'll probably leave that for a future discussion once we get the policy in place and work with the committee.
Your worship, certainly up to council when you wanted to discuss it. It could go on as 4.4. And if you wanted to push it down to your next regular council meeting, we can certainly, that'd be a recommendation on to your next council meeting if you would consider their request for their budgetary request, as well as their endorsement of their committee.
Yeah, that's the one thing is that might be good to tie it together with a budgetary number, which we couldn't approve today anyways. So do you want to leave it for the next, everybody else in favor of that? We leave it till the next regular council meeting for discussion? We can discuss it today and then make a. We can discuss it today, yeah. Sure. While it's still fresh in everybody's mind, so. Okay, well, let's, do you want to do it now or wait till 4.4? Why don't we continue on? Okay, I'm certainly pleased to see the initiative that these people have shown, and I think we're foolish not to take advantage of this whole situation. It's because we're all pretty new at this racism policy making and stuff, and we need all the help we can get. But any further discussion?
I guess the couple of points I'd make is hearing that they're trying to focus on Innisfail, and then looking at this little brief handout, 3 or 4 items here related to unconscious bias, and I truly believe that is a great place to start. Because I do believe unconscious bias is, well, the very wording. Some people are not conscious of their bias, so. I'm generally speaking in favor of what I heard.
Any other comments?
I would also support us advancing this, and I was quite, I guess, when some initial workshops, and just wondering, hopefully, and to me, I know how fast $2,000 can get eaten up within, consultants and whatever. I'm surprised the ask was not a little bit more, but if that's what they're seeking, I would be in favor of that.
John?
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly support their initiative and also their request. I'm really happy to see a community group actually step up. It takes a lot of the sort of workload off of administration and council. They can certainly, and it sounds like they're certainly willing to actually do the ball carrying and the hard work. So I think this is a start. And to Councillor Hill's comment around consultants and things, I see this as the initial workshop, Councillor Hill, and out of this there may be other strategies or objectives that we want to work with them on and continue. I see this as an ongoing sort of a living kind of initiative. Yeah. So I fully support both the acknowledgement of the committee and also the support of their request for $2,000. I would support that motion.
I guess my question would be, how do we, what form does the acknowledgement of the committee, like how do we, what kind of motion or how do we actually do that, I guess is my question.
Your Worship, Councillor Rehberger's question. So I'm just working on some wording. If you were to endorse the $2,000 request, I kind of pictured this way, not to point you in that direction, but up to you. But motion for council to endorse the welcoming and inclusive community committee's vision and goals, and to recommend to council to support the request of $2,000 for joint council and committee training and workshops.
Your Worship, through to CEO Becker, I guess I liken it to our support of the dementia-friendly community. And the same kind of thing, right? That's community-led, it's a different organization completely, and yet the town of Innisfail supports that. We're going a little further with this because we're looking at some financial support, but I think anytime we can partner and collaborate with groups, it's beneficial, and like Councillor Harrison, very pleased to see a community group taking the initiative in this and taking that workload off our administration team, and they have a lot of experience at this, and I think based on what they've done in the past, we know it'll be very successful.
Yes, thanks. I too support inclusive communities, and I'm glad to see them step up. I wish I didn't see this picture, and my concern is if there's a connection to BLM movement itself, then I won't support that. I support all wholeheartedly the inclusive communities, but I will not support anything that's connected to BLM, and I'm gonna have a conversation with Sue and Jason to see if there is a connection there.
Well, I think, I think it's a great project, and I too, Councillor Carrot, I don't think, hopefully we don't want to get involved in specific groups or anything that have specific agendas out there. We're looking at an Innisfail support group and policy, and I think that's important rather than to get to, because the BLM movement is more specific and a more specific and focused group, whereas I think we're looking at an overall picture and not so much in that direction. But Councillor Reber?
I just wanted to formalize it and make the motion that the CAO so graciously wrote for us. Whatever he said. Which is a recommendation to council.
Thank you, Councillor Reber. Any further discussion?
Sorry, what is the motion we're talking about?
The recommendation, that's for Councillor Rehberger. Councillor Rehberger moves for council to endorse the welcoming and inclusive communities committee vision and goals, and to recommend to council to support the request of $2,000 for joint council and committee training and workshops.
I'd certainly like a little more information. As I said, I'd like to know if they're following guidelines of BLM before we do vote on this. I'm all in favor of inclusive communities, but this picture of BLM in their particular education stuff isn't sitting well with me. So me personally, I'd like to get more information before we vote on this.
So I just want clarity, Your Worship, through the CAO. So would we be voting on that motion, or that administration is going to bring that to next council? Is that, which would give Councillor Carrot the opportunity to?
Your Worship, the Councillor Bates, that exactly in the minutes will reflect this motion. It'll come before you next Monday at the council meeting.
Thank you. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, we're not approving.
Okay.
Any other discussion? No? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Okay, let's get on to 4.1 COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Your Worship. As stated last week, the ECC meets now every Wednesday. We're planning to go into a little bit more detail regarding the current pool operations on Wednesday, as well as initial review of the arena's risk assessments. That has really taken the most of our time right now. We're also talking about such facilities as LLC and what that looks like on the booking side, and how do we best prepare it for bookings. So likely we'll be drafting new policies, and how do we best operate these facilities under the current circumstance. So these bigger facilities are a little bit more of a challenge, and but we'll continue working through those and risk assessments. And the pool's been open now for 1 week as of today, so not a great demand on the public presence, but it's been a good start so far. So we'll know more as we work through those bigger assessments.
And the, just for clarification, the farmer's market is closed for the year? Is that correct?
Yeah, I can address that one, Your Worship, as best as I can. Right now, the facility isn't open for them to use, but specifically, I can't confirm their plans to move forward in perhaps another venue.
Okay. I've been asked that, I don't know how many times, so. Now I know. Okay, any other questions about COVID? All right.
Your Worship, through to CAO Becker. I've just been picking up off the news. It appears that the spikes or the cases are starting to increase here again in Alberta. So we're still encouraging, recommending the wearing of masks as a municipality. We're following the provincial guidelines. Would that be fair to say?
Your Worship, to Councillor Harrison, we do follow as a town
Yeah.
all requirements of the health officer, chief medical officer regarding masks. So right now, we're able to be considered cohorts within our vehicles in our workplaces. So we're certainly we maintain 6 feet. However, those that are working directly with each other are considered cohorts. And some, I think very little would wear masks at this point, but certainly would if they're not following the requirements of the chief medical officer. So yes, we follow what she has us, what those restrictions are, we follow them to a T.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Do you want to accept that for information?
Yes, please.
Okay, would someone like to move?
I'll move we accept the COVID-19 update, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Next, 4.2 is the draft of the public space maintenance policy.
Okay. Thank you. So this is a new policy that we're looking for feedback from council prior to moving forward. So it's a new policy that includes maintenance activities for all parks and spaces. The policy will replace existing spray park, skate park, and playground inspection policies, and addresses monitoring of service levels related to grass and open space maintenance, flower bed plantings, trees, amenities, sports fields, all manners of our open space maintenance. The policy establishes 4 service levels with associated frequencies of various activities related to those service levels. Today we're looking to familiarize council with the policy and invite feedback on proposed services. Creating this policy has been a very valuable exercise, particularly this year with reduced park staff and being able to quantify all of the areas and activities that those staff are expected to carry out. Once in place, this policy will help staff prioritize as well as help front office staff when we're addressing inquiries and complaints related to maintenance. I'm just going to scroll down to the map here while we talk about the service levels. So this map won't actually form part of the policy. It will be digitized, but we've been working with this map just to help figure out where exactly we do all of the work and those various frequencies. Mort is also with us as well. If anybody has specific questions, he can help us out as well. So the policy sets those 4 levels of service, level 1 being the highest level of maintenance. This is the most manicured, most pruned areas of town. This is where you'll find planting beds, where everything is, where it's highly visible and seen from visitors entering the community. So that's what's reflected basically in the orange areas on the map. So our primary corridors, Main Street, 52nd, the sports fields, what am I also got? Yeah, sports fields, library, aquatic center, town office, the flower beds. So that's the highest service level. Those are mowed, and all of the weed whipping is done around those areas. Service level number 2 is the next level, moderate. These are still, trees and lawns are kept healthy, regularly mowed, and you're looking at the playgrounds, cemetery, Dodds Lake, the CP berm north of 42nd Avenue Street. And this is biweekly mowing, or biweekly to weekly, based on the discretion of the parks manager, with weed whipping occurring in select areas, so not weed whipping everywhere. Level 3 is the dark green on the map. So this is neighborhood green spaces. So green spaces in areas where there isn't necessarily a playground associated with it. Little Raspberry Park, the backside of the sound wall, those types of spaces where there are green spaces but not necessarily a playground. Trail cut-throughs, where you see trails just cut through mid-block. So these would be bi-weekly mowing with minimal edging or sort of seasonal weed whipping occurring. Level 3 is natural and low-maintenance areas. So this would be natural areas like around Napoleon Lake, as well as the areas where the large tractor is doing the mowing. This is, ditches, and primarily monthly and on an as-needed basis. Very little or no weed whipping, et cetera, occurring in those areas. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions on that. And then we'll go in, we did have a few specific examples that we wanted some council input on in terms of those service levels as well. Thoughts?
Is this something you've had that you've worked with, I guess, for a while? Mort, is it something similar?
Yeah, it's primarily something that's been ongoing for a little while.
Yeah,
It actually takes back from years ago.
yeah.
And we've just kind of revived it more now. So, yeah, we've kind of revived it more. But it's something I'm totally for.
Yeah.
I think it's something that will benefit the town, benefit administration, and the public, and all.
Yeah, because they're the ones that get all the questions when the phone rings, yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Mayor Romaine, through to Mort probably. Just in a couple areas, and in particular, just so I can give a good example, by the library, like down at the bottom of the hill behind, basically behind where I live, there's been some residents been told that they're gonna have to start maintaining that. And I said, I doubt it, but can I just get a clarification on that?
Are we talking the steep area there?
The,
Yeah, right there.
yeah, right, I think right there from, can't quite see.
I
what
can
that-
maybe comment, and this ties into one of the sort of specific questions that we have in the report with respect to weed whipping and edging. With the reduced staff this year, that's one of the things that was sort of cut, was a lot of the weed whipping that often occurs. So here, I've got a picture. In terms of weed whipping along private fences, adjacent green spaces. So in other years, all of that has been weed whipped on a regular basis.
Right.
Where that was sort of one of the major things that weren't able to occur this year because of staff shortages. And I've just got a good example here in
Right,
terms of.
but as far as regular running the mower behind there up to, do you know where I'm talking about? Where you go from, it's actually right beside, or just up from Don's place too, if you go up towards the library behind, and then there's a path that goes up to the library. Like, that's not, that's, the town will still continue to do that.
They would mow
of-
it, but yeah, not.
Short of the.
It's not
Yeah.
gonna be a weekly basis, no.
Thank you, and that's what I assumed, I just needed to make sure I had a clarification, and that would be the same for, any similar areas, I take it.
Yeah, so this is a picture, oh, where'd it go? That we're looking for some feedback on. So this is a private fence line adjacent to a playground. In other years, we would have weed whipped this full private fence on a regular basis. So you can see in this one, the one homeowner has done that, the other one hasn't.
Yeah.
And looking for some feedback from council as to how you guys feel about
Is,
that
just as a,
service level.
sorry,
Hey,
Nora,
wait.
just, so, are we talking this year being a one-off, or are we?
Well, that's what we're trying to establish now moving forward, that, you know, we weren't able to do it, as regularly or at all this year. But moving forward, where do we wanna fall on that spectrum?
Your worship, through to Megan, on that example there where the homeowner hasn't done it, how far away from the fence are we talking? Is it a foot or is it just underneath the
Or
fence
say as
more?
close as they,
Within a foot. yep.
Within a foot?
Within
so
a foot,
just a nod.
definitely.
Okay. So it's basically as close as you can get with your mower, right? Oh, okay.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Your worship, I do understand through speaking with Director Kennedy that some of the onus of the term boulevard has kind of been something that a lot of our citizens have been able to have kind of looked at. Like, that's actually ideal right there. That they've had the privilege of having that looked after by the town in a lot of areas. Myself, where my home is also an example of where, you know, outside of our fence is something that basically through communications with Stephen and his group, that would be like just on the outside, that along the whole fence line there, that's going to be within our like for me to look after, which I'm not opposed to that, but I do understand that there are going to be some citizens that are going to have an issue with that. Like if everything else was, if I was paying somebody to do my property and cut the grass, that would be then an extra expense if I was hiring that out. Being as I can look after it myself, it's not a huge issue, but I do see the point of view from some residents that if they have to hire that out, that's going to increase their maintenance costs for themselves. So that's just a discussion point that I wanted to bring forward that maybe everyone could have a little input on, so.
and I'll maybe just add to that. So the policy did, or does seek to kind of clarify some of that by specifically laying out, so like the example on the left, that where there is grass between a property line and the edge of the roadway, that would be a property owner's responsibility. The example on the right, where we're talking about along major corridors or on those high visibility routes, or even this example on 52nd, where the property owners don't necessarily have direct access out to the back. And in this case, it's actually a municipal reserve strip before you get to the road, that there would be situations where the town would be the one maintaining that full boulevard.
Your worship, through to Mort, do you, does the town spray anymore for weeds or?
As far as we haven't sprayed for
Okay.
at least 8 years.
Okay, just curious, like sometimes you've got those walkways in between houses and beside the sidewalk or rock beds and the weeds grow up, the chickweed and stuff grows up in them and it's,
I've only, Gene, re-entered the park side of it in the last 2 years. So I believe the last two have done that would have been Laura Gillespie, our last horticulturist, so.
so is it not allowed anymore or?
I don't know exactly what happened
Okay,
over that,
okay.
no.
So it would be, it would be considered a level change from not weed whipping circumferences of all these areas. That would be one of the things that would be cut, moving, changing levels. Just the weed whipping itself is time consuming, is,
Oh, most definitely.
I see, yeah, okay. 'Cause it's always kind of been my thoughts that if you're gonna mow something, you should finish it, but if it's, when you start to look at the whole area of the town, it becomes an issue, just the weed whipping to finish those areas, but.
I have a question then. Is there any, so in this picture, the one homeowner has done it. Is there any consequences to the other homeowner that doesn't do it, other than the fact that he's got to look at the fence line with the grass growing up?
Have to understand too, this year, I'm hoping is a, short-lived, time in history that we have to deal with.
But I
Yes.
guess moving forward, would the expectation be that we would be going back to?
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the questions that have been posed to me is our taxes haven't gone down, but our service levels are dropping.
That's what
So-
we're here to ask.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
so, and that's why I asked if it's a one-off, because I know we've had to reduce staff, but again, there has to be a balance. If we're gonna continue to have the taxes the way they are and the service level was at that point, then I think we need to look at getting back to that point personally.
Your worship, to Councillor Kerr's comments, and that's exactly what's coming on your agenda coming up. If you want to maintain the current service levels, it's likely an increase in budget will be required. So if you want to maintain taxes, these service level adjustments will be required.
Your worship, through to CEO Becker, I think what might help or to Megan is, you know, at some point, like I have no idea how much time and money does it cost to do all this extra trimming on backsides of fences and everything else, and, you know, having those numbers in front of us would, I think would be helpful, because it might be quite shocking to some of us just actually, I can imagine how much time that takes, and
Your worship, to Councillor Barclay, and that should come in the final report. This is a policy review and A&P, so to conduct a thorough service review, you'd have those numbers to demonstrate the budget reflection.
Worship. So I have a question through to, I guess, Megan or Mort. So if I look at this picture that's up right now, the one scenario that I could see is if that's all, my neighbor calls them perennials, dandelions. What happens then if I'm the civilian who goes out there with my Killex and kills the dandelions outside my property line, and my neighbor has this awful aversion to chemicals being used, and I'm now off my property? How are we going to deal with that?
I guess the expectation here is what we're looking for is some feedback in regards to your property line. So maintenance of your property line, be it on your side of the fence or the other side of the fence, not going into public space. That's what we're looking at, not going into the public space and doing weed killing or anything like that. So I don't know if that helps address that.
Well, no, look, getting to that specifically, it looks like in this picture that the person 2 houses down or 3 down has actually gone out there probably with his weed trimmer and cut the grass. This doesn't have dandelions, but so would he go out there too and be spraying? That's the question. Or would he just be allowed to shoot through the fence to get the dandelions that are right there? Or because seriously, there's the odd person in town that just, they get real upset when they think of chemicals and their dog and.
Well, I guess the closest we would be getting is within a foot of that fence. So that would be our parameter of,
So again, back to the, if the mower hasn't got it, you can go out and get it.
yeah.
Well, yeah. just be prepared, because I think down the road there will be the odd person that'll
Yep.
be asking those questions, and
And likely there'll be people with mowers, this year as a one-off this year, so I have addressed a couple concerns in regards to our park spaces, in regards to our mowers not getting within, right up to the fence and then not weed trimming, because typically in the past they have weed trimmed it. So we did ask this year in regards to a media outlet that we had as well, is if you can help out in the back green space. We don't have the summer students this year that typically would do the weed whipping. I think the numbers that we ran more was between 6 and 8 are pretty much full-time weed whippers. Like that's what they do all summer long. So that's a significant number of staff that we typically use, just to do that one service.
Okay,
Yes, Your Worship, I was just gonna add that obviously, I'm of the opinion that as long as you're not, if you're chemically treating your own fence line within the foot, I think that's acceptable, but obviously you don't have any right to be spraying chemicals on town property. So I think that's a pretty, that 1 foot is kind of a good measurement. I think that if that's implied somewhere, it maybe gives people that understanding of it's not the whole space, it's just that one little bit of area, which probably be an easier pill to swallow and understand.
okay, Councillor Barclay? No. Okay, so I think, what we're trying to do here is establish, not only the level system that we can expect on a 4-level system, but also the impact on budget. CEO Becker, are you looking for some response from us as to what extent we're prepared to go to maintain these levels of service as well, or?
I think that's the nature of the administrative presentation, Your
Yeah.
Worship, is to get the council's feedback. Obviously, adjustments have been made regarding COVID. However, we want to make sure it's consistent, so more attendance crew can serve based on clear direction. Because we want to formalize it just so they know what's expected of them.
I know when it was, it was proposed and we were looking at ways of saving some money this year, but short of laying staff off, was to eliminate the summer student program this year to save money, and consequently the results were that we had to reduce our levels of expectation. And I'd like to think that that was a one-time only thing, that we don't really have to get too concerned about it, but I can't, for the life of me, can't see any of us, maybe I'm mistaken, but any of us that want to see a reduction in our appearance of the town in the future years, that we want, I'm hoping that we get back to the level we were before. I don't know about, maybe I'm alone, but I'm hoping it's a short-term thing now. Whether we have to adjust our mill rates to accommodate that kind of thing, I don't know, but.
Your Worship, I totally agree with that statement. I would like to see us, get back up to where we were before when it's appropriate to do so. And I think a big part of this is, being able to give good information to the public. So, people may think, well, yeah, our taxes are staying the same, but we're reducing service. Well, we know that the assessments were down this year, so we may have left the mill rate the same, but it's less money, and plus we don't know how COVID's going to impact the community, and hopefully that's a this summer thing. But yeah, I would like to see us get back to where we can weed whip the backsides of fences and get back to having those summer students on staff. But again, when you don't see the numbers and the actual cost, it's hard to know, like, where does it all fit together? But yeah, the nicer we can make our town, the better it is, by all means.
Councillor Reber.
I guess my question would be, if this was a back alley and that was my fence, I would be cutting the grass on both sides of the fence, so why do these people get theirs cut and I don't get mine cut? Right? So is it reasonable that we're cutting it for them just because it backs onto a town green space instead of a back alley where I have to cut my own?
Yeah.
And my neighbors because they're too lazy?
Well, I don't know, where do you draw the line?
That's what I was gonna say, is it's unfortunate, but we're trying to take care of our parks, and that's part and parcel of our parks, but I understand what you're saying, but it's the park, is the aesthetics of it, right? And unfortunately, we have more people like your neighbors than like yourself.
Any other comments, or?
Yes, Your Worship, I heard, get back to the levels. Is this something, this new service level, is this something different than what was before COVID?
It basically reflects what we've been doing, but it's never been formalized in a policy or any sort of document where we can respond to people or sort of do that prioritization. We've sort of done everything as much as we can. And this has forced us to look a little more closely at, you know, what should we be doing most often, and working our way through the list, similar to how we do snow removal.
Yeah, so we've created an expectation, and now we're trying to pull it back a little bit. So I think I agree with Councillor Barkley that I think we need some background here as to what this is going to cost, so that we can go out and actually educate our public. Yeah, if you want the level of service we had prior to COVID, this is what's going to cost. So you talk about taxes. You want to raise taxes? So those are the trade-offs, and I think we'll get into that discussion here in the next agenda item. But I think we need something to work with. Right now, it's more of a visual. But if we had some hard and fast numbers, and I would probably bring those back at budget time. Is that, or when?
Your Worship, Councillor Harrison, I'll come back with a policy.
Okay.
You'll see it all together in one package.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're looking for a motion to accept this for information for the time being. We're not trying to totally finalize this whole thing, but unfortunately, I think council's responsible for we've created a monster, now we gotta feed it, or we're in trouble.
Your worship, I would make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Okay, 4.3, the capital and operational budget targets.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's a great segue to this conversation. Over the last couple of years, administration has been working on service levels, so we actually are going down into our hundreds of services that we provide to the community, and it's best that you have complete information to help you with your decisions. And budgetary, of course, and then, of course, the demand and the request of the community to, in regards to receiving those services. So this is typical. We would want to get council's feedback on the upcoming budget preparation, 2021 budgets, both operational and capital. And just to help us initiate the conversation, ideally we'd get your vision on just some general targets for 2021. What makes 2021 so unique is, of course, the current economic states, global really, but provincially, regionally, as well as the COVID-19. So it's really tying into previous conversations of the council with your risk mitigation, to service adjustments, trying to now picture in what our assessment, where is that going to play into dollars coming in to offset the demand for taxes. So if we can get into some conversation on where do you like to see 2021 go, and if it's going to be kind of up here conversation, but this is where it needs to start, but we need to kind of zone it down onto more detail and accuracy, and that starts when we present you the budget. But to help administration move forward with its pulling the information together for your budget, we'd like to hear from you what your expectations are and some of your targets. It's easy as where would you like to see the mill rate or tax level? Would you consider an increase, decrease, 5% reduction in budgets? Like, that's kind of tying into what you're hearing in the community and the realities, and how do we then provide that service back to the community? So I'll stop there to see if there's any feedback and information requests you likely have on helping you making these decisions, but this will be an ongoing conversation from here on into December and then May of when the mill rate is presented to you.
Your worship, through to CEO Becker, I guess for me, the, inflation is very, very seldom negative. So, all the time we have an inflationary component, and if we keep taxes like this all the time, or the mill rate like that, and we have assessments that are going down instead of up, that, at some point we're going to have too much of a gap, and I don't know what the impact, and I'm sure Director Weimark probably doesn't know yet what the impact will be of COVID this year, as far as we've got facilities that we're maintaining without people using them right now, and that's going to have a major impact, and hopefully we'll maybe have a little more handle on that going forward. So I don't like to see service levels to be cut. I know this year was unique, and it's fine that we didn't bring the summer students in, but I don't want to see, preferably wouldn't like to see that going forward. I'd like to see us maintain what we've done in the community, and if that takes a bit of a tax increase every year, then that's what it takes. But I think, as I said before, I think the most important part of that is communicating that to the public, right? People see taxes go up, well, why? Where there's always good reasons. So.
Yeah,
You go ahead.
Mayor Romaine, I've always been in favor of negligible tax increase through every year being, less than 1%, so it's not, so we and kind of sort of goes on the same principle, I think, as Councillor Barkley, but she can correct me if I'm wrong, but just to have a little bit of an increase so that at someday we don't have this huge correction and all of a sudden you're putting it up by 6-7% and everybody, nobody likes that. So a small, less than 1% increase is what I always like to see. But I also think, and I know CEO Becker, right from day one of being hired here, he was looking at efficiency levels, and I think that I think there's still some room for improvement there, especially out in the parks department, because I've seen and have had citizens remark about still having 7-8 students out, and 6 of them are doing the work and 3 aren't. So there's some efficiencies that can be obtained there as well.
Your worship, I echo Councillor Barkley's comments, because especially for the biggest reason, as when we start trying to market our community, yes, it is quite a cost to have our flowers, to have everything the way we would like it to be, but I think that is the signature that we like to carry, and that reputation that we need to uphold. So I think that that's a non-negotiable in my mind going forward. Is having that aesthetics, especially in the main corridors that we want to promote and revitalize. And yes, we know it costs money, but I think it's dollars well spent, so we can take pride in our community and not nickel and dime ourselves out of flowers and some stuff that we should take for granted, because I think that's what our town deserves.
Councillor Bates?
So I'm always a believer in not raising taxes if we don't need to, but I'm also willing to raise them if we need to. Feedback that I'm getting from people is they don't particularly want to see a reduction in services. And so the reality obviously is that if your assessment's going down and you're paying less taxes, then you might have to see a mill rate increase to keep the town funded the way it is. So to that effect, as I looked at this year, the COVID and everything, I looked at some of our cutbacks in parks and the beauty of the town with flowers and that sort of thing as being this year. And I would like to look forward and say that we're going to be kind of back to where we were. The other thing I don't want to lose sight of in this whole thing is the franchise fee thing, because we usually bring that up with zero notice, like we got 1 week, and ATCO and Fortis have come to us and, saying, you got to decide now. And last year, we approved some increases, and some of it went to a reserve for, I believe, for a railway crossing for the pedestrians. And so I would like to know again if that increment that we took last year is going to be used for that purpose to that reserve again this year, and or if we do it again, we need to be looking at those things. And they are becoming significant, and I know we've held taxes pretty tight for the last, I want to say, 7 years. Those franchise fees have gone up, and I'll just go home and look at your personal bill, because just looking at my last one, and of course we all know it's insane when you get a utilities bill and you look at your actual usage charge and then compare it to everything else. But if I just look at my usage charge for electricity, my town of Innisfail franchise fee for electricity is 47% of my usage. And if I just look at my natural gas, it's 76% of my usage. So those things are getting significant, and I'd like us to make sure as we're discussing this now that we're looking at that too. And again, I personally have a problem with the increases to franchise fees, because I think we're taxing people for the basics of living. And don't forget, and I brought it up before, you also pay GST on those taxes, and that's something we don't get, whereas anything in the mill rate, we get it. So that's my soapbox.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I agree with the aesthetics of the community. As we work through our 13 ways, and there's a word that's in both our mission and vision, our draft statements. It talks about beauty, and I don't think we want to get rid of that. I'd like to see to present a status quo budget, a 5% and a 10% decrease on the budget, and what that looks like, and where the decreases would be. Is it in Public Works? Can we do it? And then I think we need to put together for this level of service, like I mentioned before, we need to demonstrate where our residents are getting the bang for the buck. And if they want to maintain, and if our assessments are down, and just to keep up with the cost of inflation, you need probably a tax increase of around 2% per year. It's called inflation, just to keep up with inflation. So when I hear we haven't had a tax increase in 7 years, just by default, you're 14% behind just on that.
We've had some through to Councillor Harrison, but not very much. And I'll throw another caution out there. I guess the reality is, if we ask administration to prepare estimates even of a 10% decrease, you know how much work we're asking them to do, and how, that everything comes at a cost. And I would guess that when we discussed earlier about a donation to a committee, that would get lost in what it would cost them to do that estimate. And so we have to be careful what we ask them to do, because sometimes we do ask them to do stuff that costs a lot of money. And every time you take a look at what your own taxes are, and if we give $5,000 away, that's probably one of the biggest properties in Innisfail, taxes for the year.
I think we have to demonstrate what these numbers look like. And I look to...
I guess my challenge to you, you haven't sat through a budget yet, so I think I've sat through 6. And we usually have a surplus. And so that's something else that I guess we could ask administration to do is create a smaller surplus or budget to a smaller surplus, but we do have to be careful because everything we ask them to do is a cost. And everything we spend, whether it's fixing up a road or buying a new fire truck or ice resurfacer or pickup, or you can just rationalize it back to how many taxes of yours, or increase the hours on the handy van, just pick. It's real easy to sit here and say, oh, that sounds like something we should do. But everything we do is at cost and beyond budget too, because lots of times, whatever we budget, you'll be asked for 50 things next year that weren't budgeted.
I think, Councillor Harrison, too, just for your benefit, is initially, we've asked the staff with our, great computer system that we have now to go through their entire operations before, we go into these deliberations. And over the last number of years, we've been very, very fortunate the end results of that first stage. They come back to us. I don't think there's been very often that we've gone through that first skeleton proposal and say, well, here, no, I think we better cut a little more out of here. They've been we haven't had to really do too much of that. So it's been a very good thing that we've been fortunate we haven't had to do that, to go back and say, well, now we don't want to increase taxes, go back and cut 5% out of the budget. So we've never really taken that approach. We've had confidence in the staff enough that they've given us the bare bones initial budget that they think they can do everything with. We take that and compare it to the assessment, the mill rate, and see, okay, where are we at in this picture? And then, of course, then the capital situation comes after that. That's where we've got the room to play. It's in capital for sure, Don. But
I'm certainly not criticizing administration or questioning their integrity.
No.
But I think we've got to a point where, we've been fortunate over the last 7 to 10 years that we've been, municipality-wise, I think we've been really lucky. Now we've got to a point, I believe, where these discussions, they're hard discussions.
Yep.
And maybe it is. Yeah, you come back with a skeleton, and if the constituents and the ratepayers say, I want to maintain the level of service with I don't want a tax increase, well, then the discussion becomes, okay, it's 5%. We got to find 5%. We got to find 10%. So it goes back to that. So I guess when it's sort of a chicken and an egg thing, all I'm asking is, or suggesting to administration, is be thinking about if those questions are asked when we go back from the public. Like if you had to cut 5%, where would you cut? If you had to cut 10%, where would you cut? Those are the kind of questions that I'm suggesting that we ask administration. Not come back with a dollar and a cent line by line thing. It's just be thinking big picture about where you might have to cut, because
Those items do come up at budget time, and they do bring us a pretty elaborate as to where we can save, where we can't, where we're gonna increase, what we can do. So it's a pretty, and I'd have to say Heather, they do a great job, and they give us that whole picture, so.
okay,
Just a question, Your Worship, just for clarification, what was the dollar value for 1% increase? Was it 75,000 it represents? That might be good information for Councilor Harrison to understand what that represents.
And Your Worship, I know she's sitting very quietly over there in the corner, Director Weimark, but
She doesn't have a mic in.
I'm wondering, Director Weimark, if you have any insight at this early. We are seeing some other levels of government funding cut back. So MSI, for example, I think it said in this report that the Small Communities Fund will be done next year. So what will that mean to our budget? Because it's fairly significant, right? Another 15% cut in MSI and.
It is, and that goes back to, can you hear me? So The capital and the operating are really two different things. However, if your government takes your funding away, you're looking back at your operating side to determine, is there money there that can come out and go into capital to still maintain the infrastructure that needs to continue to take place? COVID has thrown a real kink into the whole thing. The surplus this year probably won't exist. Just a note, I don't budget surplus. It is what's left over after the budget is done, so it's not something I budget for. I budget 100,000, I think everybody knows is my bottom line there. So you're going to look, and you're going to look more into your reserves. So there's another component there as we go forward where we've been very lucky to have that kind of surplus. You're going to start looking now at what percent you want to go into your reserves each year, and based on that, without government funding, what can you do out of reserves each year to maintain the infrastructure? I can tell you right now, your water is not meeting your infrastructure. You're not even close. So there are other avenues in there that we have to take a serious look at. That was going to be one for 2020 that I was going to bring on the plate. COVID messed me up a little bit, but we have to look at that because right soon here, you're going to be in the hole with water. That means we're not billing enough to offset. So there are some trials and tribulations coming. I think this next year you're still going to see kind of more funding. I think 2022 is going to be where the sand sort of settles in what the province has to offer after that.
So, Your Worship, through to Director Weimark, but you mentioned the water, and we're not meeting infrastructure needs. When you bring that to us, will that all be laid out that, we're taking X number of dollars in, here's the repairs that need to be done, the replacements over the next 5 years, for example, and?
Yeah, and that's where asset management is a huge component of this whole process going forward. Without asset management, we could never bring those numbers to you. It's a guess in the air, and that's what we've done in the past, is because we don't know exactly how long that line will last and what that cost is to replace each line. So this year, I believe we'll have enough in asset management to make those stronger decisions, and they will make a difference because we've replaced based on broken, and we react immediately to it. We can't keep doing that. We have to plan going forward. And so this year, 2021, will have a different component in there based on asset management.
Well, I think that ultimately that's what it ends up, where we will end up is the feeling out the end results of COVID. We should know that, and hopefully by the end of November or something, when you start working with the final numbers.
Providing we don't go into another flow, right? That's I have numbers now that's coming to you next council meeting that has the next quarter of financials. Yeah. It's a drastic difference from the first quarter, so you're going to see some of it there. Yeah. To know our end result, it's going to be December 31st, providing we don't go through another rash of it, right, where we have to shut down. The arena, again, is another conversation that needs to take place of what that's going to look like opening up for the next 2 quarters. That's got some huge dollars attached to it as well. So COVID, we're not going to feel to the very end, I think, of this one, providing it doesn't ramp back up again.
And there's been no indication from our federal or provincial friends that are going to reimburse us for any of those.
No, unless Todd has seen something.
Your Worship, there was an announcement last week from the feds. They gave billions of dollars to the province, and that was for municipalities. I forget exactly what the number was, but
I think it was 19 billion for the entire country, but
the details yet to be released. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay. Number 3 comment here, administration to present budgets reflecting percentage decrease. Todd, do you want comment on that at all.
It's just your worship, just an idea. This is within your realm. This is your policy. You can ask us to do whatever you want. So that's really just a point.
Yeah.
So I think, as we get into this, if it's the work you want, you can have us do anything that you desire, even if it's 5%, 10%. Likely then would put that in a resolution to give us formal direction to do that research. And what would come back is administration would list out, here's areas that would be reflective of that. But before we go into that, I know it's a suggestion by Councillor Harrison, but I'd probably move that into a resolution as we get into the budget, that kind of work you want us to complete. So I think more conversations to occur. What I'm hearing from council is basically maintain pre-COVID levels of service. And you're open to marginal tax increase to maintain that level of service. Obviously, there's a lot of pieces to go with that, and that's the risk side. Also, it has to go talk about how we fund our reserves. Has generally been through surplus. So now that's going to be likely this year and maybe ongoing. That number may not be there. So how do we now put money back into reserves? Many municipalities have a percentage of their budget or their equalized assessment that we put in as a reserve. You can say 10% of our budget will go into this reserve. So every year you put that in your budget instead of reliance on surplus. So a lot of more conversations thing to occur. As we have questions, we'd like to just build on this. But right now you give us a good starting point. Back to staff if you have any further comments. But the budget will reflect right now pre-COVID levels of service.
Yeah, I think so. You gotta start somewhere, and then if it looks like it's gonna continue on, we'll have to take our different focus. For sure. Okay, you want a motion to accept this for information?
I'll move with it. We accept this for information,
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Round table, let's do a quick round table.
Yes, Your Worship, I will head us off. Thank you very much.
He's trained.
Anyways, yeah, so no, it's been very wet out there. It's been, there hasn't been too terribly much going on. As a councillor, there seems to be lots of really good work happening behind the scenes on some of our delegations that came forward today, as well as I've had some other people that have reached out to me that were part of our community conversation that are definitely sounds like things are momentum's brewing within the groups of people, and sounds like they're anticipating, well, they're excited for the anticipated outcome of a policy. So, there's a lot of kudos going to the town for that. Other than that, for the workload for the staff that they've been having to deal with all the landscaping and the rain and the lawn cutting, and you can tell it's I personally know it's quite challenging. Now I would only anticipate a whole municipality would be a lot more to take on. So definitely everyone's doing a very good job on the town front, but that's all I have to add. There hasn't been a whole lot else, so thank you.
I haven't had a whole lot specific since the last council meeting. We certainly did win the negative lottery with that hailstorm, from what I'm hearing from some people, with the deductibles they're having to come up with on their cars and their houses. And we had some bad areas in town. I guess I've got MPC tomorrow. And I think that's it. Thank you.
MPC tomorrow.
Yeah, PC tomorrow.
What am I doing? I've been doing some training. It takes The only good news about the training is it's normally a 16-hour course. We've got it condensed down to 12 hours, 3 hours a day for 4 days. But I found out today I got to do a test, and nobody else has ever had to do a test in the past. This is serious stuff. This is put on by the government, so Subdevelopment Appeal Board training. So that it's a very high bar. It's a multiple choice open book test, and you got to get 70%, and you get 2 tries at it. And you got a week to do it. So I'm staying very focused.
Good luck, Councillor Reber. Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I attended a webinar on July the 14th, last Tuesday. It was one of the regional resilience series, and it was health and safety during a relaunch. It was chaired by Kimberly from the Central Alberta Economic Partnership. And the guest speaker was Jeff Reynolds, who is the incident commander for the pandemic team here in Alberta. And what I took away from it was there's no indication of when phase 3 was going to take place. He didn't have any idea when we might be able to get into phase 3. It all depends on sort of what happens in phase 2 and these increasing cases. So it's a very fluid start. He did mention that there will be financial support in the tune of $200 million funding from the government for relaunch. So, and like everything else, details to follow. And that was about it. There was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 people on the call, so there was a good uptake. That's one of the things that the Central Alberta Economic Partnership puts together on a timely or on a regular basis. And as a member, we have opportunity to attend those free webinars and seminars. So thank you. Well, and I guess I got MPC tomorrow if somebody tells me the time. 3? Okay, thank you, Megan.
I've got, of course, a report. I'll give you a little later, but.
Sorry, Your Worship. There's 3 of us on MPC.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay, I'm the backup, then I won't be there at 3. I do.
You can come and listen.
No.
Uh-oh.
Well, then I should show up too.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. What I do, through Your Worship, through the CAO Becker, if I could get a copy of the committees as of our last council meeting, the principal and also the alternate for myself, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Did we actually do that in council? We did it. Okay.
Okay, actually, just casually I'll mention, I went for a walk last night and did the loop around the lake down around Dodds Lake and the frontages. And the lawns are just fantastic. It's kind of course, a record rainfall this year, but man, do the yards look nice. And they're just pristine like commercial lawn growers, but wow. One thing lots of rain does is grow grass. Anyways, yeah, I've got some reports to give you too a little later in the meeting here on SRD, but I think I'll just go around. Stephen, have you got anything you want to update us on, or Heather? No. Stuart, you've usually got something.
Yeah, just the one from me today, Your Worship. Just a quick update for council. We engaged with the Innisfail Ski Club last week as per council's previous direction. Myself and Kane had a meeting with a couple members of their board, very positive. Just emphasizing council's offer of support, or rather to explore ways of potentially supporting the project. The folks of the ski club advised that there was no specific ask at the moment. However, they were appreciative of the offer of outreach and advised that they would stay in touch as the project progresses. So, yeah, just a brief update, and we will advise if we hear anything further in the weeks and months to come. And just a reminder that there is MPC tomorrow as well.
Megan, have you got anything?
I was just gonna update, so the skate park, we're hoping benches, et cetera, will all be in there tomorrow, and we'll start working on a bit of a ribbon cutting ceremony, what that can look like. But hopefully we're getting close. And also mention that Dodds Lake, public engagement should go live on Friday is the current, target, so you guys will get a notification as well as we'll start rolling that out.
Todd, you got anything?
Mayor Romaine, I just have something to add about the skateboard park. There's 2 garbage cans there, which is great, fantastic. The one is like, I don't know if. I heard that. Okay, I figured maybe you did, but.
Probably using it for a jump.
And yeah. And I just quit, like, was there, I don't know, it seems like they're real close. I don't know if, I'm sure that was taken into consideration, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually, Matt and Dan went out, I haven't even been by since they put them in, but.
Just aesthetically, it looks not so good.
I believe there's still the sponsorship program that's going forward to do the permanent cans and all that kind of stuff all put in, correct?
Those are the permanent cans.
Oh, they are?
They got the 3.
Oh, okay,
They're great. They look good.
Oh, okay. A little close, okay.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else for round table, would someone like to move we go in camera? Thank you, Councillor Barkley. All in favor? Carried. We're in, take a break.
That's for the guys that don't wear the helmets.
Yeah. Looks level.
I saw it actually today when I was driving by with my Genie, so really slow. There was 2 guys that are taking